Okay, imagine this for a second. You step outside, maybe in Delhi, maybe Mumbai, one of India's big bustling cities. The energy hits you, right? The sounds, the chaos.
Absolutely, it's vibrant.
But then you take a deep breath. And instead of fresh air, it's, well, it feels like you've just inhaled dust. Or maybe exhaust fumes.
Yeah, that gritty feeling.
Exactly. And look, that isn't just a bad moment. For millions, breathing that kind of air filled with what's called PM10 pollution, that's been the reality, day in, day out, for years now, looking back from, say, 2021 right up to this year, 2024.
And that's what we really want to unpack today. For anyone listening who wants to get a handle on this, without drowning in technical reports, we're aiming to cut through the noise.
Right. To pull out the really crucial bits from the data, make sense of this pretty complex issue.
Basically give you a clear, efficient understanding of what's going on with PM10 in India's major cities.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. PM10, what actually is it? We hear the term thrown around a lot.
Right, so PM10 stands for particulate matter, tiny particles essentially, that are 10 micrometers or less in diameter.
10 micrometers, that sounds incredibly small. How small are we talking, like in real terms?
Okay, think about a single strand of human hair. That's roughly 50 to 70 micrometers wide. So these PM10 particles are, 5 to 7 times smaller.
Wow, tiny, like invisible dust, almost.
Pretty much. You can't see individual particles, but they're there. Almost like the glitter of the pollution world. It gets everywhere.
Okay, glitter of pollution. I like that analogy, though it's a bit grim. But why is it such a concern? What happens when we breathe this stuff in?
Well, that's the crux of it. Because they're so small, they can bypass your body's natural defenses, the nose hairs, the mucus linings, and travel deep, deep into your lungs.
And once they're lodged deep in the lungs, that can't be good.
No, not at all. That's where the trouble really starts. They can trigger really bad asthma attacks, make existing conditions like COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, much, much worse.
So we're talking serious respiratory problems.
Definitely. And it leads to more people ending up in hospitals specifically because of breathing difficulties.
Okay, so there must be some kind of safe limit, right? A level that's considered, well, acceptable.
There is. India has the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, the NAAQS, and for PM10, the annual limit is set at 60 micrograms per cubic meter of air.
60 GMM.
60. Okay, that's the benchmark, the line in the sand.
That's the official line, yes. But then you look at the actual measurements coming in from monitoring stations across the country.
And I'm guessing the reality is quite different.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. We've been looking closely at the data from the Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB, analyzed by Respirer Living Sciences, specifically for the period 2021 to 2024.
And what does that data show?
It shows that in many, many major Indian cities, the PM10 levels aren't just creeping over that 60 limit. They are consistently, sometimes dramatically higher. Right, so that's really the mission for this deep dive then, isn't it? To understand just how bad this PM10 pollution is in key cities, figure out what's causing it, and importantly, what's being done or maybe not being done about it.
Exactly. And we want to do it in a way that makes sense, that's engaging, not just throwing numbers at you.
Okay, let's name names then. Which cities are consistently topping the charts for bad air, for high PM10, the rock stars of bad air, so to speak?
Well, unfortunately, Delhi, Patna, and Lucknow have been consistently showing up with the highest PM10 levels over this period. They form a kind of recurring trio at the top.
The usual suspects, sadly. What kind of numbers are we seeing for them, say, this year, 2024?
The data is pretty stark. Take Delhi's Anand Vihar monitoring station. It registered an average of 313.8 micrograms per cubic meter.
313, that's more than 5 times the annual limit of 60.
Exactly. Now, technically, that number is slightly lower than in some previous years for that specific location.
A slight dip, but calling that an improvement feels wrong somehow.
It does. It's like saying your house fire has gone from a raging inferno down to just intensely burning. It's still a major crisis.
Yeah, good analogy. What about Patna and Lucknow?
Patna's Semampura station wasn't too far behind Delhi, clocking in at 237.7 acaramanals for 2024. And Lucknow's Lalba area has been consistently above 160 anarics. Again, way, way over that 60 limit.
Just consistently unhealthy levels. And are there other places popping up with worrying numbers?
Yes, actually. Chandigarh has shown some really concerning hotspots, too, with certain areas even breaching 250 diameros, so it's not just those three.
And geographically, a lot of these cities fall within that Indo-Gangetic Plain region, don't they? Is there a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. That region is almost like Well, a VIP section for pollution,
A
unfortunately.
VIP section. How so?
It's geography, the typical weather patterns, especially during certain seasons, and the sheer density of human activity industry, agriculture, population. It all combines to trap pollutants.
Like a basin effect.
Exactly. The air doesn't disperse as easily, so the pollution just builds up and hangs around.
But it's important to stress this isn't just a North Indian problem, is it? We hear about Delhi a lot, but other regions are affected too.
That's a crucial point. While cities in the south, like Chennai and Bengaluru, generally have lower average PM10 levels compared to, say, Delhi or Patna.
They're still not meeting the standard.
No, they're not. They also consistently exceed that 60 DMRO annual limit based on the RLS analysis of the CPCB data.
So maybe they get a participation trophy for being lower than Delhi, but they're still failing the air quality test?
That's one way to put it. They're doing relatively better, yes, but better still isn't good or healthy in this context. They're still above the safe limit.
Okay, so let's dig into the why. What are the main culprits? What's pumping all this PM10 into the air across these cities? It sounds like a mix of things.
It definitely is a cocktail of sources. One of the biggest, undeniably, is vehicular emissions.
Just the sheer number of cars, trucks, bikes on the roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The volume of traffic combined with older vehicles, sometimes less stringent emission norms, and just constant congestion. It all adds up to a massive amount of exhaust fumes and particulate matter being released right at street level.
Yeah, you can almost taste it sometimes during rush hour. Okay, vehicles. What else?
Construction. Think about the amount of building, demolition, road works happening in rapidly growing cities.
Oh, yeah. The dust. It's everywhere.
Precisely. Often there isn't enough regulation or enforcement to control the dust from these sites. Digging, moving soil, cement mixing, it generates enormous clouds of PM10 dust that just linger.
Right. It can feel like driving through a desert sometimes, passing a big site. What other major sources?
Waste burning is another significant one.
People just burning their trash in the open.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
Despite rules against it, open burning of garbage still happens quite frequently in some areas, and that releases a really nasty mix of pollutants, including a lot of PM10.
It seems so basic yet so polluting.
It is. And then, of course, you have industrial operations, factories, power plants. Unless they have really good emission control technology and it's working properly, they're continuous sources of PM10.
Makes sense. Industrial hubs would naturally contribute significantly.
And we can't forget the seasonal factors, especially up north.
You mean crop burning?
Yes. After the harvest, particularly in states surrounding Delhi, farmers often burn the leftover crop stubble in their fields. It's a cheap and quick way to clear the land, but it sends huge plumes of smoke and PM10 into the air.
And that happens around autumn, right? Just as the weather starts to change.
Exactly. And that timing is often terrible because you get meteorological conditions like temperature inversions setting in during the cooler months.
Inversions.
Yeah.
That's when colder air traps the warmer, polluted air near the ground.
Precisely. So the smoke and pollution from crop burning plus all the other urban sources just gets trapped, creating those really severe pollution episodes we see.
So it's this nasty mix of year-round urban pollution topped off with these intense seasonal spikes.
That's a good summary.
And this analysis you mentioned by Respirer Living Sciences using the CPCB data from 2021 to 2024, it really confirms this persistent failure, doesn't it?
It does, quite starkly. Their findings show that all 11 metropolitan cities they studied failed to meet that annual 60 DMANA PM10 standard consistently throughout that entire 4-year window.
Not a single one managed it year after year.
Not according to this analysis of the official data. And as we mentioned, locations like Delhi's Anand Vihar stand out as particularly severe and persistent hotspots.
And this is despite various efforts, right? We hear about clean air plans, sometimes rules like the odd-even vehicle scheme in Delhi.
Yes, there have been initiatives. The National Clean Air Program, NCAP, exists. Cities have their action plans. Specific measures like odd-even have been tried.
But the data seems to suggest these haven't really moved the needle dramatically. It feels a bit like, well, maybe like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Is that too harsh?
It highlights the scale of the challenge, certainly. Significant sustained improvement across the board hasn't materialized in the way everyone hoped.
Which brings us back to the health impacts. Why should someone listening, maybe far away from these cities, really care about these PM10 levels? We said the particles get deep into the lungs.
Right. And it's not just about, coughing a bit more or having itchy eyes. The health consequences are serious and well documented.
Okay, break it down for us. Short-term versus long-term.
Sure. In the short term, exposure to high PM10 levels, even for just a few hours or days, can trigger those asthma attacks we talked about. It can worsen symptoms for people with COPD, bronchitis.
Leading to more doctor visits, hospital stays.
Absolutely. Increased emergency room visits and hospital admissions for respiratory problems are directly linked to spikes in PM10 pollution.
Okay, that's the immediate stuff. What about breathing this air year after year?
That's where the really worrying long-term effects come in. Prolonged exposure is linked to increased risk of developing serious cardiovascular problems, heart attacks, strokes.
Heart problems from breathing polluted air.
Yes, the inflammation caused by the particles doesn't just stay in the lungs, it can affect the whole body, including the cardiovascular system.
Mhm.
It's also linked to lung cancer and, tragically, to reduced overall life expectancy.
Wow. It's like having a really bad house guest who just won't leave and slowly wrecks the place from the inside out.
That's a grim but not inaccurate analogy. And it's crucial to remember who is most vulnerable.
Children and the elderly, I assume.
Exactly. Children, because their lungs are still developing, are particularly susceptible to damage. And older adults, often with pre-existing heart or lung conditions, face much higher risks from exposure.
It really underscores the urgency. So what about the policy response? We mentioned NCTP, city plans. What are they actually trying to do?
Well, the general idea behind these plans is to identify the major pollution sources in a particular city and then implement measures to control them.
Like what kind of measures?
Things like promoting cleaner public transport, maybe electrifying bus fleets, trying to enforce stricter emission standards for industries and vehicles, paving dusty roads, controlling construction dust better, improving waste management to stop the open burning.
And things like Delhi's odd-even scheme, that was aimed squarely at traffic, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a specific intervention focused on reducing the number of private vehicles on the road on any given day. There are ongoing discussions about much stricter emission norms, too, like the Frat Stage 6 BSI standards.
But as we saw from the data, the impact seems limited so far. What do experts, like those at Respirer Living Sciences, say needs to happen?
The report really calls for a much more comprehensive and forcefully implemented, multi-pronged response.
Multi-pronged, meaning hitting it from all angles.
Essentially, yes. They stress the need for significantly tighter emission rules for both vehicles and industries, and crucially much better enforcement of those rules.
Enforcement seems key.
Absolutely. Also, much more rigorous oversight of construction activities to actually control the dust. Major improvements in waste management systems are needed to stop open burning altogether.
What about the crop burning?
That needs tackling too, by providing real, viable support and alternatives for farmers so they don't have to burn residue. And alongside all this, sustained public awareness campaigns are vital to get citizens engaged and informed.
It sounds like a huge undertaking. Lots of different pieces need to fall into place.
It is. And as you said, the challenge often lies not just in making the rules, but in making sure they're actually followed on the ground. Enforcement is consistently highlighted as a major hurdle.
Right. It's easy to write a plan, harder to make it work everywhere.
Exactly.
Is there any glimmer of hope in all this? Any positive signs, however small?
Well, perhaps a couple of things. That slight dip we mentioned in Delhi's PM10 in 2024, while nowhere near enough, does at least hint that downward trends are possible. It's not inevitably getting worse everywhere all the time.
Like seeing traffic move slightly faster during a massive jam? It's still a jam, but it's not completely gridlocked.
Maybe something like that. A
Yeah.
small sign that interventions can have some effect, even if it's slow and incremental.
Okay, a tiny glimmer. Anything else?
And as we noted, cities like Chennai and Bengaluru, while still over the limit, do show that lower levels are achievable compared to the northern hotspots. Perhaps there are lessons to be learned there, things they might be doing differently or benefiting from geographically.
Worth looking into, definitely. And you know, in a strange way, this air quality crisis is something that cuts across society, isn't it?
That I mean.
Well, rich or poor, no matter where you live within these affected cities, you're basically breathing the same air. It's an oddly unifying problem.
That's true. It impacts everyone, regardless of socioeconomic status. It's a shared environmental burden. And we should also give credit where it's due. The CPCB's monitoring network is essential. Without that data, we wouldn't even be having this conversation with any real precision.
Absolutely. Having the data is the first step. Okay, so for people listening, this can all feel a bit overwhelming. Like, what can I possibly do about pollution from factories or prop burning hundreds of miles away? Are there practical things individuals can do?
Yes, definitely. While the big systemic changes need policy action, Individual choices do matter, both for personal protection and collective impact.
Like what?
Well, first, protecting yourself. When air quality is bad, and you can check this easily on various apps now, wearing a good quality N95 mask when you're outdoors can make a real difference. It filters out a lot of those harmful PM10 particles.
Okay, masked up when the air is bad, like a slightly less cool, futuristic superhero.
Huh, something like that. It's practical self-defense. Second, stay informed using those air quality apps. Knowing the levels in your area helps you decide, maybe postpone that strenuous outdoor run if pollution is really high.
Makes sense. Be aware, adjust your activities.
Third, think about transport. Whenever it's feasible, can you choose greener options? Maybe carpool, use public transport, cycle, or walk for shorter trips.
Less polluting and maybe cheaper and healthier, too.
Exactly. Reduces your personal contribution to emissions, saves fuel costs, potentially gets you some exercise.
Yeah.
It's often a win-win.
Okay, what else? Can we push for bigger changes?
Yes. Engage with local leaders. Let your elected officials know that clean air is a priority for you. Write emails, attend town halls, support groups advocating for better air quality policies. Collective voices can pressure policymakers.
Use your voice. Got it.
And finally, a simple one, plant trees. If you have space or can participate in community planting drives, trees do help filter air pollutants over the long run. Every little bit helps improve local air quality.
So mask up, stay informed, choose green transport, speak up, and plant trees. Those are tangible actions.
They are. None of them will solve the whole problem overnight, but they empower individuals and contribute to the solution.
So looking ahead, this PM10 problem, it's complex. It's deeply rooted in how these cities function, how the economy works. It's not going away quickly, is it?
No, it's definitely a long haul. Solving it requires fundamental changes in energy use, industrial processes, urban planning, agricultural practices, and transportation. It's deeply intertwined with development itself.
But the fact that we are talking about it, that organizations like RLS and CPCB are tracking it, analyzing it, that's important.
Absolutely crucial. Continuous monitoring, research, and public discussion keep the issue on the agenda and provide the evidence needed to push for effective solutions.
And is there room for optimism? Can this battle be won?
I think there's room for cautious optimism, yes. If, and it's a significant if, there's a truly concerted, sustained effort across the board. Stricter emission controls that are actually enforced, real changes in how construction sites manage dust, effective solutions for waste and crop residue, more investment in clean energy and transport. If all that happens,
Then we could see real progress.
then yes, significant improvements are achievable. You know, people across India show incredible resilience in facing all sorts of challenges daily. Tackling air pollution is another huge challenge, but it's one that ingenuity and determination can overcome eventually.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The key takeaway seems to be PM10 pollution is a serious, ongoing health crisis in many major Indian cities. The levels have been consistently way above safe limits for years now.
Right. Driven by a mix of traffic, construction, waste burning, industry, and seasonal factors like crop burning.
And the health risks are significant, both short-term breathing problems and long-term heart and lung disease, even affecting lifespan.
Policy efforts are underway, but the data shows they haven't been enough so far. Enforcement remains a big challenge.
But there are some positive signs, potential pathways forward, and definitely actions individuals can take to protect themselves and contribute to cleaner air.
Exactly. It requires a massive coordinated effort, but progress is possible.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you go about your day, maybe just pause and think about the air you're breathing. Consider your own habits. Could you make a small change?
And beyond that, maybe try to visualize it. What would it actually feel like for these incredibly vibrant, energetic Indian cities to also have air that's genuinely clean and healthy to breathe? What could that future look like? Perhaps checking out the air quality data for your own town or city, or looking into local green initiatives could be a good starting point.
Food for thought. Thank you for breaking down this complex issue with us today.
My pleasure. It's a critical conversation to keep having.